Good evening. Welcome to Live United. Today we have an opportunity to hear about all the great things happening here in the Monadnock region. And one of those very special programs that happens here in the region is Big Brothers Big Sisters. And today I'm fortunate to have with me Kevin Fusco, the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters New Hampshire. And there's some exciting activity going on at Big Brothers Big Sisters. So Kevin, give us an update on what's been happening.
Yeah, there really are some fantastic things going on. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm thrilled to be here and be able to talk about Big Brothers Big Sisters. But yeah, one of the most exciting things, starting January, the 4 Big Brothers Big Sisters organizations in the state merged into a single nonprofit, Big Brothers Big Sisters of New Hampshire. And that's been exciting for our staff, for our clientele, bigs, littles, across the board.
And why is that so important, this merger? Because I think people think of Big Brothers Big Sisters and they think, well, you know, why does it have to, what benefit is there to merging together?
So imagine New Hampshire is a relatively small state. You had 4, originally 5, Big Brothers Big Sisters organizations going after many times the same grants, knocking on the same doors, and replicating the infrastructure over and over. There were 5 executive directors, 5 payroll departments, everything multiplied by 5. The 5th agency, when the merger talks first started, didn't even live long enough, couldn't sustain itself long enough to make it to the merger. So one of the things the merger does in bringing everybody together from an economic standpoint is it reduces everything by a 5th or a 4th. And so you have one executive director or CEO, you have one person in charge of programs, you have one payroll department. So the cost savings are enormous, but also the ability to share resources. So out here in Monadnock, out here in Keene, you had an agency with maybe 4 or 5 staff people. So a daunting task. And now, the agencies across the state support one another. So it doesn't matter if there are 4 or 5 people out here. They get all the support, all the resources they need from Portsmouth, from Manchester, from Nashua. So if phone calls need to be made, if we need hands on deck for fundraisers, they're coming from across the state, so resources are just pouring in. And similarly, if something's going on in Manchester, Nashua, Portsmouth, and there isn't something going on at the same time here, there are resources we can dedicate here. So staff now, they're not alone. We went from agencies that had 4 or 5 people to a total department now, a total organization of 30 staff who are supporting one another across the state. So from their perspective, it's an enormous benefit. They're not alone any longer. And for the people we serve, there are many more hands now that can provide support. So it's been good all around.
So you have efficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
The other great thing I would imagine you have is some best practices.
Yeah.
You know, where you've experienced success in different portions of the state, you can draw on that and bring it into other portions of the state.
You know, that's absolutely true. Each of the agencies did things a little different. Nobody did anything wrong, but everyone did everything a little bit differently. And one of the things in coming together we've been able to do is assess, well, what's the best way? What's the best way to get the word out that we need bigs? What's the best way to bring them into the organization to interview them? What's the best way to help support matches? What's the best way to do a fundraiser, and which fundraisers are successful and which maybe it's time to retire for a little bit? So for an example, out in Keene, there was a golf outing which over the years is petered out just a little bit, but Portsmouth has been doing a very successful stiletto race. And Keene said, well, we'll try the stiletto race out here. And the town has actually gotten very excited about it. It looks like we're going to be doing it sometime in September. And I think the town might have been a little reluctant until they saw a video of the Portsmouth stiletto race, which are men and women running a race in stiletto heels. And it's hysterical, and it's a great fundraiser, and it's a great way for people to come out and support the organization.
I really hope they don't have to run too far,
Not
Kevin,
too
on
far,
that one.
not too far. And not downhill, I'm told, because that's very dangerous.
Well, it sounds like great fun. So, great example of how you can pull some of the resources together and really think about how do you enrich each of the environments that Big Brothers Big Sisters is serving. Tell me what it doesn't change.
What it doesn't change is the mission or the culture. Everyone associated with the organization, from board members to staff to our bigs, are just so passionate about the mission, about helping littles, about helping youth, and about mentoring. And that certainly has remained consistent. And in fact, if anything, the passion has grown because we're now not looking myopically at a particular section of the state. We're looking at the state as a whole and our ability to serve it and help it. Like I said, initially there were 5 agencies. The one serving northern New Hampshire couldn't sustain itself, and it folded before it ever got to the merger. So right now, northern New Hampshire, the children have just as much need as any place else in New Hampshire weren't being served. We're gearing up our infrastructure now to be able to reach out to them.
So I want to remind people really what Big Brothers Big Sisters is all about, because that's what you haven't lost.
Sure.
You haven't lost the mission, the purpose of Big Brothers Big Sisters, which is really to provide mentors to young people who may be in need of some good role modeling, somebody that can support them and work with them through life. I've shared on previous shows that I was a big sister,
Oh,
and
terrific.
I still have contact with my little sister, and I often think about her family, which was really struggling and with both parents working, and lots of times just couldn't provide the support she needed at a very young age. And I was mentoring her when she was in elementary school and in through her middle school years. And I know we're going to share some pictures in a little bit here and get a chance to see when they start and sort of how they evolve through the Big Brothers Big Sisters. But for her, I know she talks about what a difference it made in her life, and her being able to pursue her education and go on with things because she had that little bit extra of support that she really needed, and somebody to talk to. Sometimes it's hard to talk to your parents, especially as you get older.
And that's why, even though Big Brothers Big Sisters is one of the premier mentoring organizations in the country, sometimes I don't even like to use the word mentoring because it sounds so demanding, and that you need to walk around in robes and with scrolls. It's really an adult role model, an adult who listens, an adult who will help with homework or maybe occasionally take them to the movies, or show them, depending on what background they're coming from, that there's another way of life. Certain children, certainly growing up in poverty or rough areas, they don't know what it looks like to live in what we would consider, a normal middle class, upper middle class environment, what it means to go to an office. And that's why we have a number of different programs. We have community-based programs where the big and the little get together on their own. We'll help them figure out some activities, but we have on-site programs as well. And some of them are actually at businesses. And they go in and they're mentored by the employees of that business. But they go into an office and they say, look, there's someone who looks like me and they're wearing a suit and a tie, and maybe there's a different choice I can make in my life. And they have very potent outcomes. And really, out here in this region, the Monadnock region, 12% of all the children we're serving have a parent who's incarcerated. 15% of the children we're serving have had some kind of abuse in their life. 17% have some sort of disability. 63% come from single-parent households. 65% are on some sort of public assistance. And so their opportunities may be limited, not just economically, but in terms of knowing that there are alternatives. And that's where BIGs really come into play. Just by spending time with them to realize, wow, there's other choices I can make in my life.
I really love that you highlighted that you don't like using the term mentor, because I think maybe that term makes people feel like well, I don't have the ability to
Right.
do that. I'm not, the perfect role model and things. None of us are a perfect role model. We all know that. That this is really about an opportunity to partner with somebody and to expose them to some different kinds of environments, experiences in life, and some new, as you mentioned, listening.
Yeah.
Just
So
really
important.
giving that ear to a person. And I think we all know that when children are young, that's what they're most looking for. I think about when we go into daycare centers, what often happens, you get the little child hanging on your leg and, they're following you around. And as they go through life, they just want someone to really be able to kind of turn to and that they know they're going to get some support from.
And the society we live in, too, it's so much different than it was in my parents' day. My parents remind me that when they were young, the extended family not only lived in the same town, they lived on the same block. I mean, there were literally scores of my family members all in the same block. And so if somebody needed something, there was support right there. There was always someone watching out for your child or spending time with them. We're in a much more mobile society now. In my example, my parents are in Connecticut. My in-laws are in North Carolina. I have a brother in Chicago. I have a brother-in-law in Ohio. Two of our daughters are in D.C. One of our daughters is in Rhode Island. You don't have the same kind of environment in my parents' day where there's a lot of support. So imagine if you're a single-parent household and you don't have that support. The ability to have an adult role model in that child's life beyond the existing parent is amazing. We're so proud of the fact, and we are proud of the fact, that since the merger, we're serving 1,300 matches, 1,300 children in this state. But there are 50,000 single-parent households. Now, many of them probably have support mechanisms in place, but a lot don't. And that doesn't even take into consideration households where a parent is incarcerated or where a parent's in the military and deployed overseas. And in the military especially, you don't know where you're going to be assigned or posted, so the odds of having family members and support in place are probably pretty slim. And that's where Big Brothers Big Sisters can really come in and help.
It's interesting because last week's show really highlighted thriving children and families. We had Dr. Drapa on the show talking about building that strong foundation for the future. And when you think about things like incarceration, you mentioned a pretty high percentage of young people being served, their parent, one or more parents may be incarcerated. I'm guessing that you probably are serving a lot more children now who may have a grandparent that is caring for them.
Absolutely.
And sometimes just having a younger person who can do things with them can be helpful. And so, there's a variety of reasons and things that can put our children at higher risk in the future. And Big Brothers Big Sisters really provides that opportunity to be proactive in thinking about, building that strong foundation for the future. I think about the young woman that I was a big for, and one of the things she's always said to me is, I think I probably would have gone down a very different path in my life. She came from a pretty tough home environment with both working parents, but the living situation wasn't great. And, she pulled herself up and went to college. Yeah. And she was the first in first generation to go to college ever in her family.
And we hear those stories all the time. My brother-in-law is a CFO for a very successful company. He lost his father when he was very young and was fortunate enough to have a big brother. And he says the exact same thing, that, it might have been a very different path had it not been for his involvement. Now, my brother-in-law is in his 50s. He still is in touch with his big. They still talk. They still get together when they're in the same neighborhood. And we hear those stories all the time. What's fascinating to me since coming to Big Brothers Big Sisters, I expected to hear the stories of the impact it had on a little's life. What I wasn't as prepared for and was thrilled by is all the positive stories I hear from the bigs about the impact it's had on their lives, how much they've gotten out of it. And what was even more surprising, these corporations, these organizations that have brought the program internally, how impactful it's been for the company. You know, they may have started out thinking, well, we'll do something for our community, and they come away talking about how much they're getting out of it and how much their employees are getting out of it. And it's really spectacular.
Well, you know, it's interesting because there's been a lot of talk about the different generations, baby boomers, millennials, all of them, and what they're really seeking. And one of the things that people do seek is feeling like they're making a difference somehow
Yeah.
in other people's lives, in their neighbors, their families. And, you know, here's a great opportunity to do that. So I would guess you're absolutely right that people feel that success themselves, that it's a great experience for them.
And while it may be challenging in the beginning, especially if the child's coming with not having felt loved or not having been successful in school, while it may be challenging in the beginning, the rewards, as people have described them, when they see that child develop and they see that child grow and they see that bond, it's just astounding. We have board members who were littles and then were bigs and are now sitting on the board, and some of them are still bigs. And they'll say, you know, when I was a little, if I didn't have this in my life, I wouldn't be where I am right now. Most children, they get to the point where if they don't think other people care about them, then it's like, why should I care? And knowing that someone who's not even related to them is taking an interest, wants to see them succeed, is spending time going to the library or going to the movies. This program doesn't take a lot. It's roughly 4 hours a month. That's it. 4 hours a month, and the impact is incredible. Big Brothers Big Sisters nationally is over 100 years old. Next year we'll have been in this state 50 years. And what's great about programs that are that old is you get a lot of longitudinal data. So we don't have to guess about what the impact is. We know what the impact is. Children who go through the program are more likely to have high self-esteem, more likely to do well in school, less likely to bully, more likely to graduate high school, more likely to go to college, less likely to turn to drugs, alcohol. So the positive impacts are amazing. They'd be self-evident, but it's nice to have that data to back it up as well.
And I think there's people out there that really want to know that they're investing in something that is making a difference and that does have results. So I think that is important information to share. I want to bring it home a little bit to the Monadnock region. How many people are being served here in the Monadnock region?
Serving 300 children right now, and we have, statewide, we have a waiting list of 300 children. And the only thing right now stopping us from serving more are bigs. Trying to get people interested and enticed into becoming volunteers, which is another reason I don't like to use the word mentor, even though it's a mentoring program, because it makes them think, oh, maybe I need a college degree, or maybe, you know, I need to be in a white-collar job. Nothing could be further from the truth. You know, as long as a person has, you know, a clean criminal record, because safety first for us always. As long as they can pass a background check, a basic background check, as long as they're willing to commit, because the worst thing for a child is to have someone come into their life and then leave, to 4 hours a month, which isn't much, and others do more than that. I guarantee you can be a successful big. And we help. We don't just make the match and then walk away. It costs $1,200 to make and support a match for us. And it's the supporting the match. We check in with the little, with the big, with the parent on a regular basis to make sure things are going well. We offer advice, we offer suggestions, and then we help come up with activities sometimes, because sometimes it's like, I want to get together, but we've gone to a movie, we've done homework, what else can we be doing? And so we like to help out and support with that as well.
You know, the thing I do remember is how much fun it was.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that you're talking about 4 hours of your time. I know I ended up putting in more time because we would have such a good time together. We'd go and, you know, whether it was the movies or walking in the park or going and playing in the park or, you know, just a multitude of things. Working on homework, as you mentioned. We happened to love, she loved art. And we'd go to art shows together and have a lot of fun viewing paintings and sculptures and things, and imagining what we could do
Yeah.
if we were great artists.
Well, so many of us, maybe we're working in a job where we don't see the results right away. They're long term, or maybe we may not see them at all. We know that they happen, but we don't have a direct relationship with them. The one incredible thing about being a big is you see those results and you feel them. And like I said, the one thing that's really surprised me is the bigs tell me they get as much out of the program, if not more, as the littles do. The fact that they're helping, the fact that someone has touched their lives, the fact that they've grown as a person is, there are very few programs out there that are win-win-win, and this is one of them.
Do you have any stories you could share with our audience about maybe a BIGS relationship? And maybe we can actually pull up the pictures right now,
Sure.
because I think you have BIGS of the Year.
Yeah, we have a big brother and a big sister of the year. And the first one is Jason Perry, he's the big, and Dominic, we don't use last names.
Yeah.
So Dominic is little. This is when they were first matched. They've been together now 8 years, and I think we have a current photo now. 8 years they have been together, and just incredible. And both will claim that the other has just made such a profound difference in their lives. But you can see, just by looking at them, how impactful this has been. 8-year relationships, I barely had that with my dog, so 8-year relationship is pretty, I think when you graduated high school, how teary-eyed people got after having been together 3 or 4 years, depending on that kind of high school. Imagine the bond that's been developed when someone's been together in such a positive way for 8 years. It has been incredible. And then we also have Big Sister of the Year, which is, yeah, that's the first picture. And so it's Deb Limoges, and her little is Jenny, and then we have the after picture. 8 years they've been together. They're even starting to look alike. And again, if you sat down and listened to them talk about how impactful a relationship this has been for the both of them, both have been, it's been so meaningful and so successful for them. And we were just at a national conference last week in D.C., I'm sorry, in Philadelphia. Big brothers, big sisters from around the country. And it was just one story after another, to the point I don't think there was a dry eye any place in the 500 attendees when you listen to the littles talk. And it's so funny, the littles, even the littles here, start off so shy. And everyone said, oh, they were so shy, so shy. Now they would grab the microphone to talk about this program and what a difference it has made in their lives. And there's no question, it puts people on a different path. Part of it is knowing somebody cares about them. And part of it is seeing that there are alternate choices they can be making. And avenues open to them they may not have thought about or even considered.
If somebody wanted to become a big, how would they reach out now here in New Hampshire, and particularly in the Monadnock region, and be assured that they are going to be matched here in the Monadnock region?
So the easiest way is to go to our website, which is bbsnh.org. I think it'll be on the bottom of the screen at some point. And we have each of the 4 regions we're serving there. You click on there, and there will be all kinds of information. It starts with an application and then an interview. What most people don't know is we don't just take an available big and an available little and throw them together. We interview both, and we try and find out what their needs are, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, how much time they can spend together, so that we can make a really meaningful match, so that a big and a little are matched who have something in common and are looking for similar time commitments, have similar things in interest, because we want the match to be successful. There's nothing worse, as I said earlier, than someone coming into a child's life and then dropping out. And we're very proud of the fact that so many of our matches go a long time. The chairman of our board, Holly Barcroft, she's been with her little 10 years. As I said, my brother-in-law in his 50s still gets together with his little, and since then has been a big and a board member in other states. So those those relationships last a long time.
Well, I would think it really speaks to the value of the program overall. So people can match that way. Now, what if a corporate group, I don't know if we have any here in the Monadnock region that have bigs as a corporation.
We don't yet. We're working on it, and one of the things after the merger we assessed was sort of capacity. So we took, for a few months, we took a step back to make sure we were adequately serving the 1,300 matches we had. And now we're ready to jump forward. So any corporation, please reach out to me if you want to have a program on site. You know, one of our model programs is in Manchester. It's through CCA Global. And every other week, they bring in the littles, and virtually everyone in that office is a big. And they literally turn over their office to the bigs and the littles. They do things together as a group, then they do things separately. They've added a nutrition component to the program. It's just so meaningful and impactful when you go out there and watch that. And I encourage any organization that believes it can do that on site, call me and we'll see if we can make that work. And I consider that sort of like almost putting your toe in the water, right? So this is done on site, it's done on work time, and so for people who think, I don't even know if I can spare 4 hours a week, if the organization is behind it, you can, because it's part of your day. And so many of those people go through the program then say, well, I want to see them off work hours too. Or those programs, because we bus the children in from schools, really only take place during the school year. So during the summer, so well, I still want to see my little during the summer. So they sort of migrate into the community-based program as well. So it's a fantastic way to start off in the program.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about, so people could have the opportunity to volunteer in multiple ways with you.
Yes.
They can volunteer through going to the website and actually signing on to be matched with someone here in the region. Corporations can contact you, again, at Big Brothers Big Sisters New Hampshire.org, so that's BBBS,
Yeah.
New Hampshire.org. And I believe we also have your email up there for folks to be able to reach out to you. Also, you can always contact the United Way, and we will make sure we connect you with the right people for this if you're interested.
I mean, there's so many ways to help out. Someone came, a few weeks ago, someone came to my office. He said, look, I don't have the time to be a big. I believe in your organization. I can't write you a big check as much as I want to, but you know, I'm a management consultant. I have these skills. You've just merged. There are programs I do that cost $5,000, $10,000 I will do for you for absolutely free. So the next meeting we had where we pulled all the staff together, which we've been doing every 5 or 6 weeks, trainings and culture building and awards, he did a 4-hour presentation that would have normally cost between $5,000 and $10,000, no charge. And he said that's the way he gave. So there are multiple ways you can give. As I said, it's $1,200 to make and support a match. Every $1,200 is another match we can make. So you can support us financially. You can support us by volunteering for one of our fundraisers to help out there, by becoming a big or a little, or by writing a check. So there are multiple ways that the organization can be supported.
And that's part of what I wanted to really get to. And I do want to highlight the advocacy piece, because I think one of the most important roles that folks that take on as a big, they become a voice for some of these children, and in many ways, whether it's within the family or maybe with the school at times, but they become their advocate in many ways. Is Big Brothers Big Sisters at a statewide level doing anything in terms of advocacy for young people and their families?
So right now we're partnering with other organizations. We don't, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of having, you know, a paid consultant or a lobbyist or anything like that on. But we'll speak at any event we can to talk about the importance of youth programs. We'll partner with organizations that maybe have those resources, so we can say not only is United Way behind this, but Big Brothers Big Sisters is behind this as well. And so we're always looking. It's a little new for us because prior to the merger, they were just small regional organizations taking care of sometimes just the town they're operating in. Now we're looking at the state of New Hampshire as a state. And now we really, it's incumbent upon us to step up as a state organization now and be the advocate, be the kind of advocate you described.
Well, and I think that's an exciting opportunity as a result of the merger to really think that with all that's happening at the state level, and whether it's around cuts or support for different initiatives, to be able to give a much larger voice to initiatives such as this, and to our families that are being served out there, I think just is so critical a role. So really an opportunity for our citizens to give, to volunteer, to advocate. Some super events coming up. I can't believe this race. It just sounds like so much fun.
It's very exciting. And you know,
I want to know though, Kevin, are you going to be out there in stilettos?
you know, it's I'm being pressured to do that. And so we'll have to see. You know, my wife is, I think, going to insist that I go out there.
Okay, we'll see you at the front of the pack then, I'm assuming.
I'm really afraid of breaking my neck, but I believe the Portsmouth one is on YouTube. If people go to it, you'll see how exciting and how fun that is. It really is quite exciting.
And you said that's going to be in September here?
I believe it's going to be in September. I think they're still nailing down the exact date, so go to the website periodically, and we'll send out a save the date communication as soon as we've nailed that down.
And I would imagine that it'll be in the newsletter that comes out
Yes.
from the United Way.
Yeah, we're sending out our own newsletters. We're trying to get pieces in other people's newsletters, partnering with Chamber of Commerce, United Way to get word out about things. And you know, you're talking about advocacy. So the program is worth doing just for the sake of the program. But for those, say on the state level, who are looking at budgets and economy, you know, study after study has come out, not just with respect to Big Brothers, Big Sisters, but you were talking about, you know, children's advocacy in general. Programs that get a mentor involved in a child's life, after-school programs, things like that, it's been pretty well determined now, and Head Start has done a lot of studies on it, that every dollar spent on a program like this now that gets an adult active in a child's life saves $7 down the road in terms of having to treat alcohol abuse, incarceration, teen pregnancy, etc. So for those who, because of their role, have to look at things strictly on an economic basis, it's really important to know that this money is an investment. It's an investment socially and responsibly, but it's also an economic investment. Every dollar spent now on these kinds of programs saves $7 down the road.
It's funny you mentioned that because in our program last week, we were talking about that figure and how building that strong foundation in a child's life early on really leads to their success in the future, whether it be in the workforce and them earning a livable wage, seeking out their education, as you mentioned, reducing the risks that everybody encounters at some point in their life, the potential to become involved with substances, teen pregnancy. There's just a number of things. And, you know, you mentioned some of the data that really points to the results that Big Brothers, Big Sisters is able to demonstrate by having these mentors really make a difference in these kids' lives.
Yeah. So often, all a child wants to know or needs to know is that somebody not only cares, but has the time to spend with them. And in that vacuum, they'll find some other role model, and it may not be as good, you know? And it's incumbent upon us to make sure if they're going to fill their lives with a role model, it's somebody responsible.
I think that's such an important message for our audience to hear. Can you again remind them how they reach out to you to become a mentor? And I really want to encourage our corporate audiences who may catch this show to really think about whether your place of business could participate in this program and reach out to Kevin as well.
Yeah. So our website, bbsnh.org, when you go to that website, you'll see all 4 regions represented. Pick the region that you're in, and there'll be information on how to enroll and become a Big Brother. If you want to reach out as a company to me, my email address is kfusco@bbsnh.org, and I would be happy to get in touch with you. I think that the corporate programs are really great, I think. Even though they're a little less time than the community-based ones, it shows so many children, especially if they're coming from lower income families, or they're coming from incarcerated families where someone's incarcerated. It shows them in the corporate environment, in the business environment, and it doesn't have to be a white collar corporation, but it shows them productive people, people who look like them, who have made something of their lives, whether they're wearing a tie or whether they're wearing overalls, that they're doing something productive, that there are alternate lifestyles than ending up in jail. We've discovered that statistically, if a child doesn't see that alternative, if they have a parent who's incarcerated, and they don't see that alternative, if they don't get a positive role model, the likelihood is they're going to follow that same path to incarceration.
I think children oftentimes in the institutionalized settings, things like our correctional facilities, may get a mixed message too about how normal that is.
Yes.
And I've been out for different sessions, training sessions and things out at our correctional facilities in the state, and oftentimes I'll hear a parent coming in with their child and saying, "Oh, we're going to go visit mommy in her house." Or daddy in his house, and I think, wow, what is the message we're sending that child about this being the home of a parent? And as you said, being able to show them that alternative, that there's home environments, and then there's environments that you live in because you've made choices in your life.
When I graduated law school, I clerked for a judge in D.C. And we were in the juvenile docket, and he would try so often to talk children out of the path they were on, and they didn't have a positive adult role model. And so many of them would say things like, "This is normal. It isn't a question of if I'm going to spend time in jail. I'm going to spend time in jail." Many of them considered it the way we consider high school. Well, that's where I'll learn a trade. I'll learn how to sell narcotics or break into houses. That's my version of high school. It was normal to them. And anything we can do to break that concept, as you were saying, that that's normal, means that child is on a path to productivity, paying taxes, and not having taxes taken away to incarcerate somebody and pay for that. But beyond the economics, it means a child who's going to be successful and productive. And I don't care how you define happiness, they're going to be far more happy than they will spending time in prison.
Yeah, it's really about giving every individual that opportunity.
Yes.
And when we don't even offer that opportunity, we should all feel responsible.
Well, when they
for
don't
that.
even know that opportunity exists, that there's that other, other way of living, other way of thriving.
And that's a message I really think we need to continue to get out there, is that this is about our responsibility as citizens in the Monadnock region to each other, to our neighbors, to our families, to be responsible for making sure that we're all thinking about how we take care of each other, how we give, how we volunteer, how we advocate. Great opportunity to do that with Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I really want to highlight for our viewers out there, I know that there's been a lot of questions about what happened to Big Brothers, Big Sisters with this merger. I'm glad you've cleared that up for us a little bit. It has not changed the mission, the purpose that it's serving out there. Big Brothers, Big Sisters remains that organization that provides bigs to our children and really gives them that opportunity to think about their futures and have a different experience. And at some level, experience some joy with an adult out there. And that's not to say that parents aren't doing that or other people, but sometimes we all need that little bit extra support. So you have a great opportunity to not only volunteer with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, in multiple ways. If you don't have time to be a big, you can still contribute, perhaps with skills that you may have that help at local levels or at a statewide level with the operation of the organization and the efficiencies of the organization. You also have an opportunity to volunteer for singular events if you don't have a lot of time. We have a wonderful upcoming event. I want to see you all out up there in your stilettos and your heels running with the pack in September to support Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So again, if you can't write that check, you have an opportunity to participate in an event that's a fundraiser. And you can also be an advocate, whether it's an advocate as a big or an advocate for Big Brothers Big Sisters as an organization. So Kevin, I want to thank you for joining us. You know, such great work that Big Brothers Big Sisters does across the state of New Hampshire, here in the Monadnock region, making a difference in the lives of over 300 of our smallest citizens out there. So thanks for joining us. Any last messages you want to share with folks out there?
No, we always say that children are our future. We need to put more meat behind those bones, behind those words. The children are our future, and if left to their own devices, they aren't going to develop the way we hope they would. They need our help. And so whether it's Big Brothers or some other youth services program, please contribute your time, your money, your energy. We'll all benefit in the long run.
So extend your hand out there, folks. You know, great opportunity to do it. Again, Kevin from Big Brothers Big Sisters, lots happening there with both the statewide merger, but at the same time serving that same mission and purpose here in the Monadnock region that makes a difference in the lives of our citizens. I want to thank you for joining us, and I encourage you to join us again next Wednesday, and to get out there, to remember to live united by giving, volunteering, and advocating. Thanks for joining us.